You know, all of science, everything we believe and build upon, rests on a foundation of trust. We have to trust that the results we read are real, that the experiments actually happened, and that the data is honest. But what happens when that trust is shattered by a deliberate lie? Today, we're digging into the corrosive problem of research fabrication, a hidden crack that seriously threatens the entire structure of science. So, just how deep does this problem run, and what, if anything, can be done to fix it?
Okay, so first things first, let's be absolutely clear on what we're talking about here. Research fabrication is, to put it bluntly, making stuff up. It's creating data or results literally out of thin air and then passing them off as genuine research. And the key thing to remember is this isn't an honest mistake. It's a calculated deception that attacks the very heart of what science is supposed to be, the fundamental principles of reproducibility and transparency. All right, to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. We'll start by defining fabrication and some of its close cousins. Then we'll put on our detective hats to see how this fraud actually gets exposed. We'll explore the incredible pressures that can push someone to do this, understand the devastating impact it has, and finally, we'll look at what's being done to protect the integrity of science. So let's start at the very beginning. While outright fabrication, inventing data from scratch, is the most extreme version, it's actually part of a whole family of serious academic misconducts that all end up poisoning the well of knowledge. For example, think of falsification. That's where you take real data, but you twist it. You intentionally edit or delete certain parts to get the result you want, even though it's false. Then you've got plagiarism, which we all know is just the outright theft of someone else's work. And there's a more subtle one called gift authorship, which is basically adding a senior colleague's name to a paper to score points, even if they had nothing to do with the research. Every single one of these acts just chips away at that foundation of scientific trust. Now, you might be wondering, if someone is just creating fake data in a lab, how in the world do they get caught? Well, it's rarely a quick thing. In fact, uncovering this kind of fraud can take years. The whole process often plays out like a detective story, with clues popping up from different, sometimes unexpected places. The very first line of defense is usually the peer review process. An expert in the field might be reading a paper and spot something that just feels off. Maybe the statistics look too perfect, or the study design has a major flaw. Sometimes the truth comes from a brave whistleblower inside the lab, a colleague or a student who sees something they know is just plain wrong. A huge red flag, of course, is when other scientists try to replicate this amazing, groundbreaking experiment, and it just can't get the same results. And these days, we have sophisticated software that can detect manipulated images, like a telltale copy and paste job on a cell image. If enough evidence piles up, it can trigger a full-blown investigation by the journal or the university. And this brings us to what might be the most critical question of all. Why? Why does this even happen? Is it really just a few bad apples, a handful of unethical people, or is there something deeper, something systemic going on in the world of academia that pushes people to this point? Well, this is where we see that fabrication is often a symptom of a much bigger problem. It can be a desperate response to a system that is under immense pressure. There's the relentless publish or perish culture, where promotions, funding, your entire career depend on the sheer number of papers you publish. There's the intense, cutthroat competition to be the first one to announce a novel finding. And when you absolutely need to show promising results just to get your next research grant, the temptation to fudge the data can become overwhelming, especially if you're in a research culture that lacks strong oversight. So when this web of lies is finally exposed, the fallout is immediate, and it is absolutely catastrophic. It creates this destructive ripple effect that spreads far, far beyond just one person in one fraudulent paper. For the individual researcher, it's pretty much a career-ending event. Their paper is retracted, they lose their job, they're often forced to repay grants, and they can be banned from their field. For their university, it's a public relations nightmare that tarnishes its reputation and can seriously jeopardize future funding. But the damage to the wider scientific community, that's maybe the most insidious part. Just try to imagine the thousands of hours and millions of dollars wasted by honest researchers who are trying to build on a foundation that turns out to be a complete and total lie. And we have to be really clear here. This is not just some abstract academic problem. It has devastating real-world consequences. When fabricated medical research is used as the basis for developing new drugs or treatments, it can put actual human lives at risk. There are documented cases where clinical trials have been completely shut down because their scientific premise was discovered to be totally fraudulent, built on nothing more than made-up data.
Now, the good news is the academic world isn't just standing by and letting this happen. In response to these scandals, a much more robust, multi-layered defense system is being built and reinforced to try and prevent, detect, and deal with research fraud when it happens.
Upholding the integrity of science really requires action at every single level. So you have journals that are now demanding authors submit their raw data and are using automated software to check images for any signs of manipulation. You have universities strengthening their ethics education programs and creating better protections for whistleblowers. Then there are external bodies like the Office of Research Integrity in the US that provide crucial third-party oversight. And ultimately, it all comes down to the researchers themselves to embrace transparency and hold each other accountable.
So this leaves us with a final, really crucial question. The reliability of science isn't just in the hands of the scientists. It's supported by the integrity of every single person involved in the system, and also by a public that values and demands honesty and transparency. When it comes right down to it, protecting the truth is a collective responsibility that we all share.